You're sitting with friends. They're laughing about something that happened last week. You nod, smile, even add a comment or two. But inside, you feel nothing. No spark, no connection. It's like watching a scene through glass. You see it, you hear it, but you're not actually in it. And the worst part? You can't pinpoint when this started. Maybe it crept in slowly. One day you woke up and realized you've been running on autopilot for months. Work happens, conversations happen, life happens. But you're not really participating, you're just present. Physically here, emotionally elsewhere, not depressed, not anxious, just absent, like a passenger in your own existence. And here's what messes with your head. Nobody around you notices. You're functioning fine, paying bills, showing up, doing what you're supposed to do. From the outside, everything looks normal. But inside, it's like you're watching someone else live your life while you sit in the back row, detached and distant. Psychologists have a name for this, non-involvement. And it's far more common than anyone admits. It's not laziness, it's not apathy. It's something deeper, a quiet disconnection that makes days blend into weeks, weeks into months, and suddenly you look back and realize time passed, but you weren't really there. The scary part, it feeds itself. The more distant you feel, the harder it becomes to step back in. Most people think disconnection looks dramatic, a breakdown, a crisis, something visible. But real disconnection is quiet. It shows up in the small moments, scrolling for hours without remembering a single thing you saw, agreeing to plans you don't care about, talking without saying anything that matters. You're going through life like you're reading from a script someone else wrote. And the thing is, you know something's off. You feel it in your chest when someone asks how you're doing and you say fine, because what else is there to say? You feel it when you finish a day and can't recall a single moment that felt real. You're alive, technically, but alive in the way a plant survives in low light, existing, not thriving. What you're experiencing isn't weakness. It's not a character flaw. It's a psychological pattern that millions of people fall into without realizing it. And once you understand how it works, how your brain quietly pulls you out of your own life, you'll start to see why everything feels so distant lately. Because here's the truth. Nobody tells you. Your mind is trying to protect you, but in doing so, it's locking you out of the very life you're supposed to be living. Stick with me. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly what's happening in your brain, why it feels impossible to snap out of it, and what actually breaks the cycle. This isn't another motivation talk. This is the psychology behind why you feel like life is passing without you. Let's start with what non-involvement actually is. It's not depression, though it can look similar. It's not burnout, though burnout can trigger it. Non-involvement is a state where you function normally on the outside while feeling fundamentally disconnected on the inside. You go to work, you have conversations, you make decisions, but none of it feels like it's really happening to you. Some psychologists describe it as a dissociative pattern. Your consciousness splits. Part of you operates in the world, handles responsibilities, responds to messages, but another part, the part that feels, that cares, that's supposed to make meaning out of experience, goes offline. You're like a computer running in safe mode, essential functions only. Everything else shuts down. What makes this so confusing is that it doesn't announce itself. You don't wake up one day and think, I've become disconnected from my life. It happens gradually. A conversation where you realize you weren't really listening. A weekend that passes and you can't remember what you did. A moment where someone asks your opinion and you realize you don't have one. Not because you're indifferent, but because you haven't been present enough to form one. And the tricky part, society rewards this kind of functioning. You show up on time, you meet deadlines, you don't cause problems. From the outside, you're doing great, but inside, you're running on fumes, watching your own life happen from a distance you can't quite bridge. The machinery keeps running, but nobody's home. Your brain doesn't do this randomly. Non-involvement is actually a defense mechanism, and understanding this changes everything. When life becomes too overwhelming, too demanding, or too emotionally exhausting, your mind finds a way to cope. And sometimes that way is to simply step back, to create distance between you and your experiences so nothing can hurt you as much. Think about it. Every day you're bombarded, notifications, deadlines, bad news, social expectations, questions you don't have answers to, problems you can't solve. Your nervous system wasn't designed for this level of constant stimulation and stress, so it adapts. It pulls you back, dims the lights, lowers the volume. You stop feeling things as intensely because feeling everything would break you. This is why non-involvement often follows periods of chronic stress or emotional overload. Maybe you went through something difficult months ago, a loss, a failure, a betrayal. Maybe it wasn't one big thing, but 1,000 small disappointments. Your brain said, "We need to survive this," and survival meant detachment. The problem is your brain never got the memo that the danger passed. It kept you in protective mode long after you needed it. And here's where it gets complicated. Once you've been living at a distance for a while, closeness starts to feel dangerous. Caring feels risky. Being fully present means being fully vulnerable. So even when life calms down, even when things get better, that wall stays up. You've trained yourself to watch rather than participate, to observe rather than engage, and now you don't know how to do it any other way. One of the most overlooked drivers of non-involvement is decision fatigue, but not in the way most people think. It's not just about choosing what to eat or what to wear. It's the constant low-grade pressure of having to curate your life. Every interaction feels like a performance. Every conversation requires you to manage how you're perceived. You're not just living, you're constantly editing yourself in real time. Social media amplifies this exponentially. You see people living these seemingly full, vibrant lives, traveling, achieving, connecting, and somewhere in your mind, a comparison starts running. You begin measuring your internal experience against everyone else's highlight reel, and you always come up short. Not because your life is worse, but because you're comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's final cut. Eventually, this constant self-monitoring exhausts you. You stop engaging authentically because it's easier to just go along, safer to agree, to blend in, to not stand out. You stop voicing opinions that might spark conflict. You stop pursuing things that might lead to failure. You stop showing up as yourself because being yourself requires energy you don't have anymore. And slowly, without realizing it, you become a spectator of your own preferences. Someone asks what you want to do, and you genuinely don't know. Not because you're indecisive, but because you've spent so long suppressing your actual desires in favor of what's easy, what's expected, what won't make waves. Your internal compass goes quiet. And when you can't hear what you want anymore, participation becomes impossible. You're just reacting to life instead of directing it. What keeps non-involvement locked in place is something psychologists call experiential avoidance. Sounds clinical, but it's simpler than that. It means you've started organizing your entire life around not feeling certain things, not discomfort, not uncertainty, not the vulnerability that comes with actually trying. You do this in ways you don't even notice. You say yes to plans, then cancel last minute. You think about reaching out to someone, then don't. You have an idea for something you want to create or try, and you let it dissolve before it even takes shape. Each time you tell yourself it's no big deal. You're just tired. You'll do it later. But what's really happening is you're practicing avoidance. And the more you practice it, the better you get at it. Avoidance feels like relief in the moment. You don't have to face awkwardness, rejection, failure, or the discomfort of being seen, but it comes with a cost. Every time you avoid an experience, you reinforce the belief that you can't handle it. Your world gets smaller, your comfort zone shrinks, and eventually even normal, everyday interactions start to feel like too much. What's insidious about this is that avoidance doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like who you are. You start thinking, I'm just not a social person, or I'm not ambitious, or I don't really need much. But those aren't truths about you. They're conclusions you've drawn from a pattern of pulling back, and the longer you live inside those conclusions, the more they shape your reality. You're not uninvolved because that's your nature. You're uninvolved because involvement started feeling too risky. Another layer that almost nobody talks about is the role of meaning, or more accurately, the absence of it. Non-involvement thrives in environments where nothing feels like it matters. You go to work, but the work doesn't connect to anything larger. You have conversations, but they're surface level. You scroll, you consume, you distract, but nothing sticks. Nothing resonates. Psychologist Viktor Frankl spent years studying this. He found that people can endure almost anything if they have a sense of purpose, a reason that gives weight to their actions. But when that's missing, when life feels like a series of arbitrary tasks with no deeper thread connecting them, the mind disengages. It stops investing. Why would it? There's nothing to invest in. And modern life makes this worse. We're more connected than ever, but most of that connection is shallow. We're busier than ever, but most of that busyness is noise. You can fill an entire day without doing a single thing that feels meaningful to you. And your brain knows this. It recognizes the emptiness underneath the motion, so it stops showing up fully. Why engage deeply with something that doesn't matter? This is why people often describe non-involvement as feeling hollow. It's not that you're incapable of feeling, it's that nothing around you is worthy of your feeling. You're surrounded by stimulation, but starved for substance. And when you can't find meaning in what you're doing, your presence becomes optional. You drift. You coast. You wait for something, anything, to pull you back in. But waiting doesn't work. Meaning isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build slowly through deliberate choices that align with who you actually are. One of the strangest aspects of non-involvement is how it warps your relationship with time. When you're disconnected, time stops feeling linear. Days blur together because nothing distinct happens. You can't remember what you did last Tuesday because last Tuesday was identical to every other Tuesday. Weeks pass, and it feels like nothing happened, but also somehow like years have gone by. This isn't just a perception problem. When you're not emotionally engaged with your experiences, your brain doesn't encode them properly. Memory requires attention. It requires presence. If you're going through life on autopilot, your brain has nothing worth storing, so it doesn't. You end up with these massive gaps where time existed but you don't have much to show for it. And this creates a deeply unsettling feeling. You look back at the past 6 months and can barely recall anything significant, not because nothing happened, but because you weren't there for it. You were physically present, but mentally absent. And now you're left with this haunting sense that life is moving forward without you, that everyone else is collecting experiences and memories while you're just drifting. What makes this even harder is that you can't force yourself to remember better. You can't willpower your way into presence. Trying to be more present while still living in the same disconnected patterns doesn't work. It's like trying to take better photos with a camera that's out of focus. The issue isn't effort. The issue is that something fundamental needs to shift first. You have to change the conditions that created the disconnection, not just fight the symptoms of it. Something almost nobody mentions is how loneliness reinforces non-involvement, but not the kind of loneliness you'd expect. You can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly alone, because the loneliness that matters isn't about physical proximity, it's about emotional isolation. It's about feeling like nobody really knows you, and worse, like you don't really know yourself anymore. When you live disconnected for long enough, you lose touch with your own inner world. Your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, they all become background noise you've learned to ignore. And if you're not connected to yourself, how can you connect to anyone else? Every interaction becomes transactional, surface level. You say what's expected, smile when appropriate, but there's no real exchange happening, no genuine vulnerability, no true intimacy. This creates a feedback loop. You feel isolated, so you pull back. You pull back, so you feel more isolated. Other people sense the distance, even if they can't name it. Conversations with you feel fine but forgettable. You're pleasant but unreachable. And over time, people stop trying as hard. Not because they don't care, but because connection requires two people showing up, and you haven't been fully present in a long time. What's tragic about this is that deep down, you want connection. You want to feel seen, understood, known. But you've built walls so thick that even you can't get through them anymore. And the longer those walls stay up, the scarier it becomes to take them down. Because being seen means being vulnerable. And vulnerability, when you've been protecting yourself for this long, feels like the most dangerous thing in the world. So what actually breaks the cycle? Not motivation, not a sudden epiphany, not someone telling you to just be present. What breaks non-involvement is something much smaller and more uncomfortable: deliberate discomfort. You have to start doing things that make you feel something, even if what you feel is anxiety, awkwardness, or fear. This sounds counterintuitive because everything in you wants to avoid discomfort. That's the whole reason you disconnected in the first place. But here's the reality: you can't selectively numb. You can't turn off the hard feelings without also turning off joy, excitement, connection, meaning. When you shut down to protect yourself from pain, you shut down to everything. The only way back in is to slowly, carefully start letting yourself feel again. This doesn't mean throwing yourself into the deep end. It means taking small, intentional steps toward involvement. Saying what you actually think in a conversation, even if your voice shakes. Trying something new, even if you might fail. Reaching out to someone, even if they might not respond. Each of these moments is a tiny act of courage, and each one trains your nervous system that it's safe to be here, to participate, to care. The shift happens gradually. You won't wake up one day and suddenly feel alive again, but you'll start noticing moments, a conversation where you were actually listening, an afternoon where time didn't disappear, a decision you made because you wanted to, not because you had to. These moments are proof that you're still in there, proof that involvement is possible, and the more you collect these moments, the more they start to outnumber the numb ones. You're not fixing yourself, you're remembering how to live. Life passing without you isn't a permanent condition, it's a pattern, and patterns can change. But they don't change by waiting. They don't change by hoping you'll wake up one day and feel different. They change when you make different choices, even tiny ones, even when those choices feel uncomfortable. The truth is, non-involvement protects you from pain, but it also protects you from living. And at some point, you have to ask yourself, is safety worth the cost? Is avoiding discomfort worth missing your own life? Because that's the trade you've been making, and only you can decide if it's still worth it. Start small. Pick one area where you've been absent and show up differently. Have one real conversation. Try one thing you've been avoiding. Feel one feeling you've been numbing. You don't have to overhaul your entire existence overnight. You just have to stop being a spectator in small, specific ways. And those small ways add up. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in any of this, do me a favor. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Not because I want views, but because chances are someone in your life is experiencing this exact thing and doesn't have words for it. You could be the reason they finally understand what's been happening. This channel exists for people exactly like you. The ones who feel everything but can't always explain it. And if you want to keep exploring the psychology behind how we live, how we think, and why we feel the way we do, subscribe. There's more coming. But for now, just remember this. You're not broken. You're not too far gone. You're just disconnected. And connection, real connection, is always one choice away.